What's up, everyone? Chris Manning here from the Locked On Cavs podcast. My co-host Evan Dammarell is with me. We are going to get into Cavs Mavs, which the Cavs won. Did a little two-step through Dallas and took down the Mavs Monday night. Pretty clean win. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Jarrett Allen and how he's played. And we'll talk about the Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen connection and how much of a crux of the Cavs offense that has been. That's all coming up today on Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, also available once a week at WKYC Channel 3 in Cleveland. And we want to thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen or your first watch every single day. Remember, we are free and available on all platforms.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Evan, the Cleveland Cavaliers, by the way, today's episode is brought to you by TrueBill. TrueBill is the new app. I gotta skip some steps here. TrueBill is the new app that saves you money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you don't want or need, and can even help you negotiate better deals on those that you want to keep. Evan, the Cavs shellacked the Dallas Mavericks Monday night. Outscored them by 11 in the third quarter, 7 in the first. And this is a game where Dallas ended up pulling its starters, including Luka Doncic, fairly midway through the fourth quarter. This was a game that I thought would be more competitive, that I kind of was surprised that it went the way it did to some degree. But the Cavs looked really good. They won. What's up?
I'm not surprised this wasn't as competitive. We talked about it when we were just looking ahead to this week in general for Cleveland. And I said this is probably their most winnable game. And
yeah, I just didn't think they were going to shellac. I just didn't think they were going to kick the teeth out of the Dallas Mavericks.
Well, two things. One, this is the first time the Cavs have played an offense where it's player-centric and Luka Doncic. And, I mean, Luka annihilated the Cavs. He had a triple-double, 25, 10, and 10. But at the same time, it just seems like the Cavs just did not care. They put Lauri Markkanen on him to start the game, which you were a little perturbed about, but
perturbed is strong. I would say skeptical, because I don't carry emotion about that. I would say I'm skeptical, and I don't exactly think I was incorrect, but continue.
Yeah, this is a fun game if you're a Cleveland fan. If you're a Dallas fan, you have to be really frustrated right now because, like I said, they have been overwhelmingly mediocre, the Mavericks, this year. And that's a little disappointing considering you have one of the best players in the league on your team. But the Kristaps Porzingis injury is unfortunate. Hopefully he bounces back. He is a huge thing of what they're doing. But Justin Rowan, jokingly, before we start getting into awards and everything, we got to rank the bigs tonight. Justin Rowan said Kristaps was the fourth best big and then corrected it to fifth when he factored in Kevin Love. I would say he was the sixth. I would say Maxi Kleber was better than him. And then for Cleveland to be Jarrett Allen, Lauri Markkanen, Evan Mobley, Kevin Love in that order. Would you agree or disagree?
I'm not playing Justin Rowan shenanigan games. He can pay me if he wants to do that. Anyway, Cavs won. They looked really good.
Cavs influencer box he got.
Yeah. Send me that Canadian dollar, Justin. Let's go. Anyway, Cavs run through some of the box score. Jarrett Allen, 28 and 14, 12 of 17 from the field, 4-6 on the line. Evan Mobley had 12 and 7 and 2 assists. Darius Garland had 18 points and 9 assists on 7 of 13 shooting, including 1 of 3 from 3. Kevin Love had 10 off the bench. Ricky Rubio had 7 off the bench. Lauri Markkanen had 24 points, 8 rebounds, 5 of 9 from 3. Maybe, again, another really good performance from him. Isaac Okoro, 10.46 from the field, 2 assists, and a block. Every starter for the Cavs was a positive on the floor. Mobley and Okoro were the lowest at +5. Everyone else was above 20 points. Not really very many things we could nitpick for the Cavs. There's one stat I will point out when we get to that is interesting. But Evan, who's your MVP?
Well, I think there's really 2, maybe 3 picks, but I'm going to go with Lauri Markkanen again. I think I gave him a shout out. I gave him a shout out in the last episode, but this time he's my MVP pick. Carter Rodriguez pointed this out, saying that Lauri's shooting, this is the first time this season he shot above 50% from three-point range. And then I pointed out he's been shooting, including this game since coming back from health and safety protocols, 42.4% from 3. And you can kind of see some of those three-pointers, he's just kind of like F it, and he just bombs it away from 3, and more often than not that goes in. But the Cavs kind of need that, and I think that this is going to be an interesting wrinkle in their offense going forward because you and I said this three big lineup is something that the Cleveland is going to stick with probably going forward because we're now 21 games into the season and they haven't given up on it yet. So, I I just think Markkinen, this is his best game so far, thus far as a Cavalier, considering the last game was his best game as a Cavalier. Like, this is pretty encouraging sign of things to come. So, yeah, Lars, my MVP pick for the night. Who's yours?
Jarrett Allen. I think he was absolutely
That's the obvious
manipulating.
one.
I just think he like did whatever the heck he wanted, and like Moses
Mhm.
Brown had no juice against him. Chris Porzingis, and when he was on the receiving end of Jarrett Allen attacks, no answer for it. I don't really know. Like he was just so good in a way that was just like quite interesting. And we'll talk about him more, so I don't want to spoil too much of that. But he was really good, and I kind of think the Cavs like using him as like a lob threat, basically just like was the crux of everything they did, and it made Dallas scramble in a lot of ways. Evan, my stat of the night is the only thing that is like kind of bizarre for me. This one, the Cavs had a turnover percentage of 21.5. That's like in the
Mhm.
bottom 5 percentile of their performances for the year. Like for them to win the way they did and like have they had an offensive rating of almost of 119 per 100 possessions. They had a really effective field goal percentage above 60%. Overall, really good performance, right? The fact that
Mhm.
they like had a turnover problem and it like just didn't matter just speaks to how well they played otherwise. So salute to that. I just think that was worth noting.
Yeah, no, definitely that is a interesting statistic, and they played really well. Like, there's not a lot of negatives to pull from this game against Dallas, but if you really get into the minutia of it, maybe there are some things you can pull, and that's a really positive stat. My stat of the night's a pretty simple one. It goes hand in hand with your MVP. It's Jarrett Allen scoring a career high 28 points, which is weird to think, but at the same time, you realize Jarrett Allen isn't like a high usage offensive player, but JB Bickerstaff is running a lot of plays involving Jarrett Allen lately because it works, and this is going to go hand in hand with my play in the night as well. But yeah, no, Jarrett just was phenomenal tonight. He definitely deserves as many flowers as he gets. I think people being skeptical of the contract extension Cleveland signed him to kind of look a little foolhardy right now, but he has been Cleveland's best player by and far this season, so it's been really refreshing. Just another quick shout out to stat of the night. You said Dallas is like one of the top teams in terms of 3-point attempts, but like one of the bottom teams in 3-point makes. That was indicative last night when they were third. They went 12 of 39 from 3-point range.
Shout out to my Cleaning the Glass subscription for making me sound smart. Anyway, Evan, your play of the night. I know where you're going with this because we do
Hmm.
prep, but what did you
We
tell the
do.
listeners what your pick is?
Well, I'm gonna be a coward and say every lob from Darius Garland to Jarrett
Oh,
Allen in
okay.
the
So
third
you
quarter.
swerved. Cool.
I swerved a little bit here, but every lob from Darius Garland, because there were some that were so good. Then, like, you know what? They all deserve recognition because, like I said, Jarrett Allen is not a high usage offensive player. He usually gets his points on putbacks and pick and rolls, and JB Bickerstaff is aware of this and the fact that he's an elite finisher at the rim. And this is going to go, I'm just hand in hand and in hand in today. We're going to talk about this in the next segment, but like Garland and Allen's on-court chemistry is insane, and it is so fun to watch it just keep flourishing over time. And last night against Dallas, we really saw it at its apex because it was a guaranteed bucket every time they ran a pick and roll where they threw a lob up for or Darius threw a lob up for Jarrett. So it's really cool to see. It's cool to see that the Cavs kind of have a bread and butter play that seems to work. You'll notice early into the game, Darius tries to get Jarrett involved or Evan involved as soon as possible. I think that's a smart way to kind of build their offensive identity. So, yeah, no, Jarrett Allen feasted, and he gets a lot of shout outs on this episode.
Yeah, he's really good. My pick is I'm just gonna shout out Dylan Windler for a second because he didn't play much. Wasn't really like a factor in why they won this game. But second quarter, he had a nice pump fake and drive, and then feed for an assist. He didn't. He took one shot in this game. It was not a three. He didn't score. He only had the one assist. He had 2 boards. Like very nothing burger. Like blah from Windler, not the kind of performance that like I think like would make him a case for like being a rotation guy if the team was healthy. But the little bit of like pump fake, get into the lane and find the shooter was just something we don't see a lot from him, and it was just kind of nice to see a little bit of life from Dylan Windler. Don't know if it's going anywhere. Kind of skeptical it's going anywhere, but just kind of like a good little moment for him when he really needed one. All right, after the break, we are gonna get into the connection between Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen and why it has been so effective and why it is so centered to the Cavs' offensive identity. But Evan, you have an ad read first.
I do. Folks, do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scam out to get you. Do not, and I mean do not let greedy corporations pocket your money. And so, in order to avoid that, download TrueBill to take control of your subscriptions. TrueBill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 per year with TrueBill. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, TrueBill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and TrueBill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And your TrueBill concierge is there for you when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. TrueBill has over 2 million users and has helped them save over $100 million. That's a lot of money. Don't fall for the subscription scam. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now, truebill.com/lockedonnba. It could save you thousands, literally thousands a year. truebill.com/lockedonnba. One more time, truebill.com/lockedonnba.
All right, back here. I remember, thanks again for making us your first listen every single day. Remember, we're free and available on all platforms. Evan, to give you I'm going to throw some numbers at you here for Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen lineups.
You're like my
For
Darius
this,
Garland. I'm Jarrett Allen. I'll finish these numbers you throw at me.
that's correct.
Wow.
803 possessions for them this year, according to Clean of the Glass. They are +7 per 100 possessions on average in those minutes. The offensive rating 109.8, which is very, very good, above league average. Not very, very good by the Cavs standards. It's not like actually good. Defensively, giving up 102.9 points per 100 possessions. We'll get into Darius a little bit here as well. But one of the things that's interesting is the starting lineup the lineup that they've played the most together, the Garland, Sexton, Markkanen, Mobley, Allen lineup, which obviously we'll not see again this season, finished the year with a 95.7 offensive rating, which is bad. But then you go to some of the other ones, like they're a little all over the place still. Like Garland, Okoro, Markkanen, and Mobley, Allen has a good offensive rating. Garland, Okoro, Wade, Mobley, Allen does not have a good offensive rating. Like some of this stuff is still just like very in flux. I just think, Evan, we've seen in real time that when Jarrett Allen is on the floor and Darius Garland is on the floor, and Ricky Rubio to a lesser extent, but I think the Garland-Allen connection is stronger because it's just been built longer and whatever. You can run. Like, I think the Cavs' escape valve is not like there's a little bit of the Darius Garland shot making we've seen. It is really like, hey, can Jarrett Allen like get to the rim and can we throw him a lob? And he's added like the little jump hook stuff. He looks more comfortable with that to me. We've basically seen kind of, at least I'll look at the charts here to kind of verify my eye test here, but I think I don't think I've seen Jarrett Allen take like a jumper from like the free throw line, which is was a thing he did a decent amount last year. I think their connection is just so clearly like the center of what they do. And obviously, like, this pushes Evan Mobley like out of being a lob threat, which he's very good at when he's playing the 5 in some minutes around with spacing around him and the floor looks more open. And there's certainly like some considerations to this, but like a Garland Allen pick and roll is just like it is instant offense and easy offense for the Cavs. And it's just kind of just like,
butter.
yes, really good passer plus really good lob finisher. Like that's a basic thing, but it's just sort of like, oh, they at least have something they can kind of turn to when they need it.
Yeah, sometimes doing the simple things or it's like cooking. Let's put it that way. Some people like to get a little too fancy with these dishes. Sometimes a classic rustic dish always just works the best. That's my analogy that's non-basketball related for the day. So.
Okay.
But yeah, no, they've been really fun together this year. Like I talked about, when Jarrett was sidelined with his non-COVID related illness, you could really tell that the Cavs were bogged down offensively. And then was Mobley out? Was Mobley out when Allen went down with his non-COVID related illness? It feels like a blur.
Mobley was not. Yeah. I mean, Mobley was not back yet, I don't think.
I know. So the offense really bogged down when Allen was sidelined because JB Bickerstaff.
No disrespect to Ed Davis, but
no. I mean, Ed Davis played really well when he was
But like
asked to step up.
like you're not gonna like run pick and roll and throw a lob to Ed. Like he's gonna set screens and things.
He's like Zach Randolph. He's got the verticality of a phone book right now, but
As do I.
as do I. The offense really like bogged down without Allen there, obviously, and I think it's just to circle all the way back to media day. JB said we need to take more 3-pointers and play at a faster pace. We're like, okay, this is encouraging. But he's like, I also think that the teams firing away from 3 is just trying to be trendy. We should establish our presence in the paint. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about here? I'm seeing what the Cavs are trying to do now and what JP means. They're playing exactly like they want him to, or he wants them to. Because they're trying to establish a presence in the paint early. And like you said, I think this eliminates some lob opportunities for Evan Mobley, but I think maybe as they kind of condition to bring him back from this elbow strain, maybe they start playing him more, or sprain, sorry. They start conditioning him more to play more backup reserve 5 with Markkanen or Love at the 4 or even Love at the 3 because they've done weird stuff like that too, or Markkanen at the 3 and Love at the 4. But either way, I think the Cavs maintaining a consistent presence in the paint, like to circle back super, super far, Cleveland can now no longer have to apologize for 48 minutes of elite center play because that's what they have in Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, and to an extent, Lauri Markkanen too, because let's be frank, he is a power forward center playing the 3. But it's been really fun to watch their growth in real time. I think an interesting statistic for me is like, yeah, you said offensively, it's a little wonky, especially if you look at the Garland, Sexton, Markkanen, Mobley, Allen lineup. And he said like the Garland, Okoro, Markkanen, Mobley, Allen lineup's like one of their strongest, but there's not a lot of tangible data. Just to reduce it down, just Mobley and Allen in general have been so good defensively, and it's mostly Allen on this part. But like when those two are on the floor together, the Cavs shared the statistic before the game. The Cavs have like a defensive rating of 97.1 when they're on the floor. And then if you remove Allen from the equation, it jumps up to like 103.9. And then if you have neither of them on the floor, it's 109.9 at that point. So it's crazy how good they are defensively. And I think that's just the most endearing thing to me is Allen's gotten better. Ryan Morton's pointed this out to me early on. Fear the sword, social guy, Ryan Morton. Allen, his most encouraging development for me is defensively, like he's able to switch on the perimeter, and I think that's really cool. And like that's just something I want to see the Cavs continue to encourage. I mean, yeah, he'll shoot threes. I think I'm fine with like once every like 10 games, but like him being a reliable switch defender really unlocks a lot of things for this Cavs team defensively. Because like him and Mobley being able to be threats all over the floor, like that makes them very hard to score on and is going to make them a lot better, obviously.
Yeah, the thing with Allen, I think, as a defender without Mobley is just I think what is I'm checking this right now, right? My brain tells me that when Mobley is off and Allen is on, which isn't like a ton of time because they're both playing like a lot of minutes, obviously.
Yeah.
I think basically I kind of think he's supporting like bad defensive players in a way. Like so like his most common lineup with Mobley off the court is Garland, Okoro, Wade, and Markkanen. So like there's one other plus defender on the court there.
Yeah.
And that
is
Dean
Wade is like a 50-50 defender.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd even like the Cavs like have like only a few plus defenders, and like that's tricky. And like a lot of his minutes without Evan Mobley are coming with Kevin Love. There's some with Kevin Love and Lauri Markkanen. So it's just like they're throwing a lot at Jarrett Allen because I think they just kind of believe he can handle it. And you're certainly going to have a drop off without him and Mobley. I think their whole defensive identity is him and Mobley. We'll be curious to see how that obviously develops over time and what kind of counters other teams develop to that. It's just one of those things that we'll continue to, I think, to monitor. I think we'll note him real quick. I think Markkanen has just kind of at least been a solid team defender in a way that I don't think it did not track from his Bulls career that he would sort of be this kind of like play within the scheme. But yeah, I think he's certainly supported by those two bigs. Evan, after the break, we're going to dive. I want to go back to there's a little note. I have a little note here on Allen and his shooting at the rim because I think it has been one of the key changes to him this year versus the first stint of games he played with the Cavs. So we'll talk about that after the break. But first, got to tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered all season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As the football season continues their march to the playoff, it remains the number one spot for all the sports action this season. So head to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive the 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit by using the promo code LOCKEDON. That is all one word. From basketball to football to NHL to boxing, UFC, and your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers for the 2021 season. BetOnline, again, is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. You can bet on any sport you want to over there. And again, it's BetOnline where the game starts. Use that promo code Locked On to get that 50% welcome bonus. Evan, I'm gonna throw a little quiz at you here. Okay, last year, Jarrett Allen took 69% of his shots at the rim. Where is he at this year? Not in terms of actual field goal percentage, just the raw percentage of his shots.
I feel like it's trending upwards. I want to see 80%. Let's just be.
You're 1% off at the 79.
Okay.
Which is not quite at like the levels of 1920 and 2021 with Brooklyn.
I'll get the guessing game right, but
it's hard. This is the best you've ever done, so just pat yourself on the back and congratulate yourself. Only positivity here, but it isn't quite at like his like peak like Brooklyn levels of those of his 1920 and 2021 seasons, but it is a massive trend upward. He's taking like 6% fewer shots, still like a higher clip than he did in Brooklyn, but like only 17% of his shots in the short mid-range, really not taking nearly as many mid-ranges as he did overall last year, like a much lower percentage overall. I think that is like really key because I don't think Jarrett Allen is ever going to be a guy that you're going to like want to like have be your offensive hub as a creator. I don't think he's a guy that you want to be someone who is going to do a ton of stuff kind of in that way for you. But he is a guy that I think is just going to always be a really good finisher. He's at 80% at the rim this year, which would be a career high by about 5%. He's not shooting some of that well in the other stuff, and he's added a little bit of stuff, right? Like I think we've seen some dribble handoff stuff from him. I think we've seen some attempts to have him pass on to a guard who's back cutting towards the rim. There's been little stuff that I think adds to his utility in these other spots to kind of accommodate Mobley, and I think that's important. But I think the crux of him is like get him to the rim, throw him lobs, throw him passes that he can, or if you can't lob it to him, get him the ball so he can dunk. And if there's not like an elite defensive center, if it's not, I would say Embiid, like that caliber of guy, I kind of think it's comfortable for me to like try and do that because he's just going to like probably finish it or at least try to finish it. And like, look what he did to Moses Brown. He got Moses Brown in foul trouble purgatory, like pretty early. Got Moses Brown in foul trouble really early in the second half where he had to get pulled out of the game. Obviously, kind of a last-minute start for him, but nonetheless, they're starting center. And like, look at the Porzingis part of it. The Cavs just like ripped Porzingis apart as the defensive five with Jarrett Allen. And like, again, there are long-term things probably to be worked out here, right? Like there are things you'll need to develop over time, and they will need to figure out over time. I think they're fixable. I think they're able to figure some of that stuff out. Getting more spacing in some ways will help that. Jarrett Allen, just get him to the rim. It's pretty clear that it's just like, yeah, Darius Garland feeding him, Ricky Rubio feeding him, and getting him at the rim is like pretty efficient offense. And that's like, at least like, again, like I think I just don't know what the Cavs would be if they had decided we're just going to play Evan. Like the alternate world where the Cavs were like, okay, we're going to like sign and trade Jarrett Allen for like something, right? And then maybe like they bring back like Hart and Dimes and start him at the 5 nominally, but play more Mobley at the 5. This team would just be flat out like significantly worse, I think, in every single area. And I think in offense, arguably, no, it's not a hot take. It's just like reality. But like, I know, but you just look at this and it's like Jarrett Allen is just so like integral to like what this team sort of is in a way that I think is really, really interesting. He's having like arguably the best year of his career in some capacity.
Yeah, I think the numbers in Brooklyn are indicative of the Kenny Atkinson system too. I think.
And then he had a little bit of. Then he had some. And like just that system with like the two guards that were shooting and like all the other spacing they had was like really, really nice for him. And that obviously doesn't exist here.
Exactly, and he's making the Cavs have found a way to properly utilize him, and I agree. I think he's having the best season of his career. I think he's having an all-star season overall, and it's just crazy to think about because there was a path the Cavs could have taken where they did sign Andre Drummond to that extension they offered him, and Jarrett Allen would not even be in this equation whatsoever. They could have Evan Mobley still, but Jarrett Allen would be in Houston. And again, thank you and shouts to Ryan Morton. So, quick thank you to the Houston Rockets organization for passing on both Evan Mobley and trading Jarrett Allen to Cleveland. It's just the Cavs really appreciate it, but
The 4-team trade that sent obviously Harden to Brooklyn, Caris LeVert to the Pacers, Cavs get in there and get Jarrett Allen and the Cavs get Taurean Prince there as well. Exum and whatnot go to Houston. Like, would really like to read like a lot of like some of the I would like to know, because I'm sure like there's different stories of like how that happened. Because I'm sure everyone has a different perspective on it to some degree, because that's just how some of this works. I would like to know like how that kind of came together in the way that it did, and how the Cavs
I
like
know.
sort of like snuck themselves in there to get to do that, because like
Well, a
of
lot of
the
it
things that
was
Kobe Altman like
Jarrett Allen because they didn't think
yeah
he worked with Christian Wood, which is
yeah
the
which
dumbest thing I've heard.
yeah, I mean, but I would just like of the things that Kobe Altman has done, that is not like draft a guy on the board, right? Like, I think this would like, and like he would probably tell you like, some of the other guys deserve credit. Like, there's probably like some group effort to it, right? But like, he's the face, he gets the credit.
Mm-hmm.
This is like probably the best move he's made as GM that isn't like drafting somebody.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a very fair assessment on your part. Like this is Kobe's best move, and obviously it's paid off in spades for the Cavs. Like the Cavs have the same record as some of the better teams. They're teams that are favored to win the Eastern Conference so far this year. Granted, it's still early in the season, so we'll take it with a grain of salt. But Chris and I will both fully admit we did not expect the Cavaliers to be 11-10, 21 games into the season. I expect them to maybe have 5 or 6 wins at this point, and they'd be cratering towards looking at Paolo Banchero and then maybe saying, okay, Banchero and Mobley, which yes would be amazing, but don't really like to focus on that now. But like Chris said, like the Cavs have a bread and butter play. We talked about this in the last segment. In the whether it's Rubio or Garland throwing it up to Allen in a lob or in the pick and roll, or just getting him involved in the offense has just been really helpful for them. And he said he hasn't had a true test yet. He actually has one coming up on Sunday. Rudy Gobert's in town, and I'm interested to see how the Jazz defend Jarrett Allen. I think they're going to really, really, really respect his paint presence because they're a well-coached defensive team. And I'm also curious to see how JB Bickerstaff responds to that and how he tries and gets Gobert out of the paint so he can make Allen's life a lot easier, because this is the crux of Cleveland's offensive identity. You want to make sure you keep this going because you don't want to make things uncomfortable for a young team, because that's when things will fall apart in spectacular fashion.
Yeah.
And that's when Evan punched his microphone.
Yeah, that's bingo card, baby. That's where like the Mobley eventually being able to shoot threes at a clip is like a big deal.
Yeah. Or Markkanen's 3-point gravity provides a little bit of that, but I don't know. I don't think you're gonna be hard pressed to force Rudy Gobert to switch on a Larry Markkinen. Like, I think Gobert is gonna be comfortably trolling and rolling in the paint on Sunday.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think like, Bam Adebayo is incredible too. Like, that is another like that, and the
Yeah.
Heat play like are very sound defensively. They're very smart when they don't, like, not every game they've had has been particularly like, they've not necessarily been engaged like all the time, but like that's a really smart defensive team, and Bam Adebayo is one of the best defensive in the league. Like, there's a lot of fun tests coming up, and like the Cavs have they have a tough schedule again. Like, they don't have like an easy game here for the foreseeable future. And I think it's just if you're watching at home and you want somebody to follow along on that's like a little tactical, a little bit, maybe off the radar. I think looking at some of the stuff with how they approach getting Allen involved against teams that have good defensive centers, I think will just be worth watching, and seeing how they kind of handle it is a little like minor thing to watch. Evan, let's get out of here though. We are going to be back again Wednesday for a preview of Cavs Heat, and we'll talk about some other stuff, I'm sure, on that one. Again, thanks again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. Remember, we are free and available on all platforms. If you want a good second listen, go check out Locked On Bets from your boy Q and Lee Sterling, wherever you get your podcast or on YouTube. Again, thanks again. We'll be back tomorrow. Please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube if you haven't already. I'm Chris. He's Evan. Be well.